Hey everybody, it's your man Shesta12, and I'm back with another video, but this time it's different. I'm gonna be going into deeper topics with y'all. Um, this is morally based on the Bible, and this is based on real life stuff that is relatable with everybody. You know what I mean? So we're gonna be going into different points, touch points. You know what I mean? Of like different topics, you know what I'm saying, that we all go through or that we have all been through. I'm going to be talking about it, what it means, and then we're going to be giving y'all examples, and then I'm going to be sharing with y'all at the ending the promises from God. Okay? So, today we're going to be talking about abandonment. Um, Abandonment is the topic for today, so let's get straight into it. One of our greatest fears is losing a deeply cherished relationship, whether by abandonment, rejection, death, or divorce. We fear losing the people we care deeply about. Sometimes being abandoned can seriously undermine our sense of self-worth. However, no matter how often people hurt us, reject us, or abandon us, our loving God always remains faithful. We are His precious children, and even when others abandon us, He will never leave us like the lost sheep or the prodigal son. When we feel most abandoned, we can find comfort and hope in His loving presence. So, in God, when you feel abandoned or when you are abandoned, you know, just remember that you can find comfort and hope in God's presence. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about, is it my fault that I have been abandoned? Is there something wrong with me? So I'm going to be giving y'all examples on that. Okay, so Naomi experienced deep feelings of abandonment, both from the death of her husband and sons, and then from feeling that God had abandoned her in her troubles. Whether abandonment happens by choice, such as by divorce, or not by choice, such as by death, it can cause us to feel unloved, alone, and cast aside. Abandonment is not only painful, it's disorienting. In an attempt to understand our abandonment, we may blame ourselves or even blame God. Naomi's feelings of abandonment led to bitterness, shame, and self-sabotage. Naomi believed that she was a burden to her daughters-in-law, so she encouraged them to abandon her as well. In her mind, what Orpah and Ruth really needed were new husbands, not an old widow to care for. Because of Naomi's instance, Orpah did indeed leave her. Naomi's abandonment trauma became a self-fulfilling prophecy. However, Naomi's other daughter-in-law, Ruth, refused to leave despite Naomi's efforts to push her away. Through Ruth's faithfulness and God's provision, Naomi was able to realize she was deeply loved. Whether you have a Ruth in your life or not, know that God has not rejected or abandoned you, even when life feels lonely. Like Naomi, you are deeply loved, and the way your story has gone in the past will not necessarily determine its ending. Joseph and the Apostle Paul were both abandoned by people they had relied on, and not through any fault of their own. Uriah had served David faithfully, yet David abandoned Uriah to his death. This was not because Uriah had done wrong, but because David was trying to cover up his own adultery with Uriah's wife. Sin is often a factor in our abandonment, but that sin is not always our own. Jesus, who lived a perfect life, was still abandoned by his closest friends. People abandon relationships for a variety of reasons, and many of those reasons have nothing to do with the person they are abandoning. Sometimes people push loved ones away because of their own depression, past traumas, or present fears. In the case of Jesus' disciples, their fear for their lives overwhelmed their loyalty to Jesus. Paul and his close friend Barnabas parted ways due to a disagreement about John Mark. However, both had good reasons for the disagreement. Paul didn't want to bring an unreliable person, John Mark, on his missionary journey. However, Barnabas wanted to give his cousin John Mark a second chance. Perhaps their disagreement was handled with respect and maturity. Perhaps their separation came with hurt feelings and a sense of abandonment. In any case, we have good reason to believe that Paul, Barnabas, and John Mark all reconciled, since Paul later praised John Mark's helpfulness in ministry. Relationships are complicated, though we may feel abandoned or betrayed by someone who chooses to move. Someone who chooses to move in a different direction. It is not necessarily their intention to abandon our relationship. Sometimes, such as with Paul, Barnabas, and John Mark, the shift will ultimately benefit the long-term health of a relationship and open new channels for God's work. There are legitimate reasons for ending a relationship. If you have been warned about how your behavior is harming someone else, it is possible you are at fault and a friend's leaving you. However, getting the opinion of someone outside the dispute may give you a clearer perspective about what is behind a separation. Sometimes people get caught in cycles of abandonment. We don't know why the woman at the well had a string of unstable relationships. However, relational trauma often initiates such patterns. Perhaps one or more of her husbands had died, or perhaps she was abused as a child or by her first husband, which may have driven her into other unhealthy relationships. Perhaps she was abandoned by someone close to her, and her fear of being abandoned again led her to subconsciously sabotage her relationships. Perhaps she felt unworthy of being loved and pushed each new partner away. Perhaps she was attracted to the wrong kind of men and kept falling into abusive relationships. Regardless of what was wrong with her, Jesus saw her as someone worthy of love and respect, and she became a powerful witness for God's news. Marital abandonment is particularly painful and complex. It often comes with warning or explanation. Faithful Christian spouses are left feeling guilty, assuming they must have done something wrong. Scripture does not address the specific causes of every marital abandonment. However, Paul does not address one common manifestation of it. In 1 Corinthians 7, Paul describes how tensions may form between a Christian and their unbelieving spouse. While Paul advises the Christian to stay faithful to the marriage, he also recognizes that the unbeliever may choose to abandon the relationship. In such a situation, Paul tells the Christian to be at peace. They have done their part. They cannot control their spouse's decisions, and they are no longer Christians to stay faithful to the marriage. He also recognizes the unbeliever may choose to abandon the relationship. In such a situation, Paul tells the Christian to be at peace. They cannot have done their part. They cannot control their spouse's decisions, and they are no longer bound to that spouse. Abandoning family members can come in many forms. A father may abandon his wife and child to fend for themselves. A mother may abandon her children to the whims of her abusive husband. A daughter may abandon her widowed mother to loneliness and poverty. Abandonment comes in many forms, but Scripture condemns all such behavior. Joseph's brothers had good reason to be frustrated with him. Joseph was their father's favorite, and Joseph kept telling their father bad things about his brothers. Joseph even boasted that he would one day rule over his brothers. Yet the brothers' reaction to sell Joseph into slavery was completely unjustified. Joseph had a responsibility for his own sins, but he was not guilty of the sins his brothers committed against him in response. The same is true for us. All right, so those are all examples of different types of abandonment that we all go through, and different reasons why we be abandoned or we abandon other people. And these are promises from God for abandonment. Psalm 46:1, God is our refuge and strength and a very present help in trouble. John 14:16, and I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another comforter, that he may abide with you forever. 2 Corinthians 4:9, persecuted but not forsaken, cast down but not destroyed. Hebrews 13:5, let your conversation be without covetousness, and be content with such things as ye have, for he hath said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. All right, so those are different examples of abandonment, and we just talked about abandonment. This is a very deep topic to talk about, because abandonment can be very, you know, heartbroken, or it could be stress relieving, you know, because it can, sometimes we need to be away from certain people, and sometimes there's reasons, a good reason why people do what they do to, you know, like just to disconnect from people. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please like this video and follow me on my page. And yeah, man, I'm gonna be talking more about these different touch points on like different like life topics that we could talk about, you know what I mean? And hope you guys enjoyed, and hope you guys have a blessed day, and God bless. Peace.